Alright, let's get right into it. WWE has clearly lost its mind with whatever twisted master plan they're cooking up for Seth Rollins after Crown Jewel. You can see it written all over the way they've booked him, the tone of his promos, the direction of the vision, and the kind of control he's suddenly been handed. This isn't just about keeping Rollins relevant anymore. It's about trying to make him the centerpiece of the entire WWE landscape, whether fans want it or not. The company has gone all in on this version of Rollins, crafting an over-the-top narrative that screams desperation. It's WWE forcing a self-proclaimed messiah down everyone's throat again, but now dressed in a darker, more manipulative persona that feels both forced and calculated. They're painting him as some kind of god-tier villain while pretending this is long-term storytelling, but it's really just chaos disguised as genius. Rollins is at the center of a machine that's spinning out of control, and WWE doesn't even seem to care that it's starting to alienate fans. His win at Crown Jewel was the moment the company made it clear that this isn't about balance, it's about dominance. They gave him the clean victory not to prove he's the best, but to push the idea that he doesn't need help, even though his entire act revolves around having a stable that practically worships him. It's WWE's way of trying to rewrite his legacy on the fly. They want fans to forget the years of him being stuck in mid-card limbo, the times he played second fiddle to Roman Reigns, and the stretches where his title reigns felt like filler. Now they're pretending he's always been this untouchable force, and it's honestly insulting to everyone who's watched his real career unfold. The Vision, his new faction, is proof of how WWE is trying to inflate his power. They've surrounded him with guys like Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, monsters who should be dominating on their own, but instead they're being used as props to make Rollins look like a mastermind. It's painfully obvious that Paul Heyman's involvement is meant to mirror what he did with Roman Reigns, but this isn't that. Reigns' story was about calculated dominance and family loyalty. Rollins' story feels like manufactured madness. They're trying to convince the audience that he's evolved into this cold, calculating ruler, but it's just another character reboot. WWE's insane master plan is to take the formula that worked for the Bloodline and slap Rollins' face on it, hoping fans won't notice how recycled it all is. There's nothing organic about the way they're building this. Everything about the Vision screams creative overcorrection. Rollins doesn't need a stable to be interesting, but WWE is obsessed with making everyone part of a group now. The moment a faction starts to catch fire, they milk it until it dies. The Vision will suffer the same fate as every other overexposed act they've forced onto fans. They'll start hot, win a few key matches, run through every possible opponent, and then collapse under the weight of overbooking. It's the same loop we've seen countless times, but WWE still thinks they can stretch it for a year or two because it gives them an excuse to keep Rollins on every show. The way WWE has positioned Rollins right now is dangerously close to creative burnout. He's everywhere, cutting promos, leading a faction, wrestling main events, inserting himself into every major storyline. Instead of letting him breathe and evolve naturally, they're turning him into the center of every broadcast. This kind of overexposure is exactly what ruined Roman Reigns in his early babyface days, and yet WWE never learns. They'll push Rollins until fans start to turn on him, and then they'll act surprised when the crowd stops caring. They're already stretching the limits of what people are willing to tolerate. The character's arrogance was once entertaining, but when it's shoved in your face every week, it starts to feel hollow. What's worse is how WWE is trying to use Rollins as a bridge to fix the chaos they created by mishandling the rest of their roster. They've buried or stalled so many potential stars that now they're using Rollins to fill every gap. Need a main event? Throw in Rollins. Need someone to carry a feud? Give it to Rollins. Need a title defense that looks credible? Book Rollins. It's lazy booking masked as genius planning. WWE is essentially overcompensating for years of short-term thinking by making Rollins the solution to every problem. Instead of rebuilding the roster properly, they're using him like duct tape to patch up all the holes. The plan seems to be turning him into the final boss type of heel, the one who doesn't just win matches but dominates entire storylines. The problem is that this works only if you have strong heroes to balance it out. Right now, WWE doesn't. Cody Rhodes is the obvious choice, but how many times can they run that back before it feels repetitive? They've already milked their rivalry dry. Roman Reigns is sidelined in his own convoluted story. CM Punk is floating between feuds. The rest of the babyfaces are stuck in meaningless mid-card cycles. So what happens when Rollins runs through all of them? WWE's answer seems to be, keep feeding him new challengers until something sticks. That's not a master plan, it's creative panic. And then there's Paul Heyman. The man's brilliance is undeniable, but even he can't polish this nonsense forever. WWE is using Heyman as a narrative shortcut. They want fans to associate Rollins with legitimacy just because Heyman is standing next to him, like his mere presence makes the storyline make sense. It worked for Brock Lesnar, it worked for Roman Reigns, but that magic doesn't transfer to everyone, especially when the story feels artificial. Rollins doesn't need Heyman to talk for him. The guy is one of the best talkers in the company. Pairing them up feels like creative insecurity, a sign that WWE doesn't trust Rollins to carry this version of his character on his own. The bigger issue is how WWE is planning to drag this out. They're clearly setting up a long arc that could stretch through War Games and possibly WrestleMania. They're gonna milk this faction story, tease betrayals, create infighting, and push Rollins as a manipulative leader who thinks he's untouchable. It's predictable, but WWE will try to convince fans that it's cinematic storytelling. The cracks will show fast. The vision isn't built on loyalty or emotional stakes. It's built on ego and convenience. There's no real bond between these guys, and when that foundation collapses, fans won't care because it'll feel like just another scripted fallout. WWE is setting themselves up to repeat the same mistakes they made with Judgment Day, stretching a group past its natural lifespan until nobody cares anymore. The scariest part of this plan is how it affects the rest of the roster. The more WWE builds around Rollins, the less room there is for others to shine. Braun Breaker could be a breakout star, but now he's chained to a stable where he's a henchman. Bronson Reed just scored a massive win, but that victory won't mean much if he spends the next 6 months playing backup to Rollins. WWE doesn't realize that this kind of booking doesn't elevate the leader, it buries everyone else. Instead of letting new talent thrive, they get reduced to background noise while the spotlight stays glued to Rollins. That's not how you build a healthy roster, that's how you create resentment. WWE's obsession with making Rollins the face of the company again feels like a regression. He already had that run years ago, and while he's reinvented himself several times, there's only so much reinvention fans can buy into before it feels fake. The current iteration of his character feels like a mashup of every past gimmick he's done. Bits of the Architect, traces of the Messiah, flashes of the Visionary, all mixed together into something that doesn't quite click. It's like WWE is throwing everything at the wall, hoping something sticks, and calling it a master plan. It's not evolution, it's recycling. There's also this ridiculous narrative WWE keeps pushing that Rollins is on a path to greatness that no one else can touch. That kind of self-indulgent writing works when there's tension and consequence behind it, but right now, there's none. The stakes feel fake. When he wins, it's expected. When he loses, it'll probably be due to some overbooked interference. WWE's master plan doesn't feel daring. It feels safe. They're hiding behind predictable tropes instead of doing something bold. If they really wanted to make Rollins the centerpiece, they'd take real risks with his story, not just recycle old heel tropes dressed up as fresh ideas. Another problem is that this version of Rollins feels like a reaction, not a vision. WWE saw how fans reacted to the Bloodline saga and decided they needed another deep, layered faction story. But instead of creating something new, they're just remixing the formula. Strong leader, loyal henchman, family-like dynamic, internal betrayal. The difference is that the Bloodline had heart. It had emotional stakes, cultural depth, and genuine investment from the audience. The vision feels like an empty imitation, flashy, loud, but soulless. WWE is chasing another masterpiece without realizing that you can't force moments like that. It's also painfully clear that WWE is using this as a setup for another mega feud, likely against Roman Reigns or CM Punk. That's the endgame they're hinting at, Rollins becoming the new god of WWE and clashing with the old ones. But how many times can they repackage that same idea before it loses meaning? We've seen the Chosen One versus the System, the Messiah versus the Machine, the Visionary versus the Legend. None of it feels fresh anymore. WWE keeps telling the same story with different names and acting like it's a revelation. Fans aren't stupid, they see through it. The frustrating part is that Rollins doesn't even need this bloated master plan. He's talented enough to carry himself. He's proven he can be a great heel or face without all the gimmicks. But WWE doesn't trust simplicity. They can't just let a star be great. They have to overcomplicate everything until it collapses under its own weight. This entire strategy screams of a company trying too hard to manufacture greatness instead of letting it happen. It's creative arrogance disguised as innovation. You can already see the cracks forming. Fans are starting to question why Rollins needs all this smoke and mirrors. If he's supposed to be the best, why is he hiding behind a faction? Why is every storyline about how powerful he is instead of actually showing it through meaningful rivalries? WWE is writing themselves into a corner where the only way out is another overbooked betrayal or forced redemption arc. It's like they've forgotten how to write characters who evolve naturally. WWE's obsession with big moments is another part of the problem. They think if they keep giving Rollins dramatic wins and cinematic promos, people will automatically care. But moments don't mean anything without context. next. Crown Jewel was supposed to be his defining moment, but it already feels hollow because it was just another step in a never-ending loop. Every time they crown a new era, it's just a reshuffling of the same players. Rollins might be the centerpiece now, but give it a few months, and WWE will be right back to pushing someone else as the savior. The insane master plan isn't even insane, it's predictable. It's WWE doing what they always do, doubling down on one guy until they run him into the ground. They did it with Cena, they did it with Reigns, now they're doing it with Rollins. The difference is that this time, it feels like they're aware of the backlash and doing it anyway. It's like they're daring fans to get tired of him. They're betting on his charisma to carry through the fatigue, but no one stays hot forever. When the crowd finally cools off, WWE will act blindsided, just like they always do. What makes it all worse is how the company keeps ignoring its own audience. Fans have been vocal about wanting new faces, new stories, and authentic rivalries. Instead, WWE gives them the same handful of stars in endless cycles. Rollins, Rhodes, Reigns, Punk. It's always the same rotation. The insane part of this so-called master plan is that WWE genuinely believes keeping Rollins on top will fix everything. It won't. It'll just make the cracks in their system more visible. The longer they cling to this strategy, the more obvious their creative stagnation becomes. At its core, WWE's plan for Rollins is about control. They want a face of the company they can rely on, someone safe, proven, and marketable. But safety is the enemy of creativity. You can't build excitement when everything feels scripted and predictable. The audience wants risk. They want moments that feel alive. Rollins could deliver that if WWE stopped trying to choreograph every second of his rise. But instead, they're suffocating him under the weight of their own master plan. In the end, this whole thing feels less like a plan and more like a panic move. WWE doesn't know what comes next, so they're buying time by turning Rollins into a walking brand. It's their go-to move when they're creatively bankrupt. Find the one guy who can talk, give him every storyline, and call it a new era. It's not insane in the sense of being unpredictable. It's insane because it's the same mistake dressed in new clothes. WWE's obsession with turning Rollins into their ultimate project is going to backfire, and when it does, they'll be right back where they started, scrambling for the next savior while pretending the last one was part of the plan all along.